Ember Blackthorne stood at the edge of the shadowed clearing, her heart pounding like a drumbeat in her chest. The moon hung high, its crimson glow casting an eerie light over the forest. The blood moon hunt had begun, and Ember, the so-called wolfless Omega, was the prey. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she surveyed the trees around her. The pack's enforcers, a group of vicious, elite warriors, were already closing in. She could hear the snap of twigs underfoot, the soft rustle of leaves as they tracked her every move. Her heart ached as she remembered the cruel laughter of Marcus Stormwind, the future alpha of Ironbark, when he had rejected her. "You're nothing but a cursed weakling," he had said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Without a wolf, you are nothing. You're not fit to be an alpha's mate." Ember's throat tightened as she tried to push back the tears threatening to spill. Her heart, once filled with hope and longing, had shattered in that moment. Her wolf, if she even had one, remained silent, absent. She had always been told she was cursed, that the bond between her and her wolf had been severed long ago. And yet every full moon, she felt it, a yearning deep inside her chest, a longing to shift, to become what she was meant to be. But it never came. Tonight, she was alone. The hunt was a cruel tradition, a test of survival. Every year, the pack would choose an Omega like her. Those who were weak, those who had no wolf, and give them a head start before sending the enforcers after them. It was a mockery of the weak, a reminder of the hierarchy. Those who survived earned some modicum of respect, though none dared to speak of it openly. The rest, they disappeared into the woods, never to be seen again. A sharp pain lanced through her side as a stone caught her. Blood soaked through her tattered shirt, but Ember pushed forward. There was no use in slowing down now. Suddenly, there was a rustling noise behind her, a telltale sign that the enforcers were gaining on her. Ember's feet faltered, but she couldn't stop. Not yet. Not until the end. The wind shifted, and for a fleeting moment, she swore she caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of her eye. Something large, black, and moving with a grace far beyond anything she had ever seen. But when she turned to look, it was gone. "Ember Blackthorne," a voice called out from behind her. It was Garrett Ironwood, the cruelest of the pack's enforcers. He had always enjoyed tormenting her, relishing in her misery. "You can't run forever, little Omega." Ember's heart skipped a beat as the wolves behind her closed in. The darkness of the trees seemed to grow deeper, colder. And then, just as she was about to give in to despair, a sound unlike any she had ever heard pierced the night air. A low, rumbling growl, thick with power, echoed through the forest. The enforcers faltered, their eyes wide with fear. Ember turned in confusion, her breath catching in her throat. From the shadows of the forest emerged a creature the likes of which she had never seen before. A massive black wolf, its fur shimmering like obsidian, eyes glowing a molten silver that pierced the night like twin flames. The wolf moved with an otherworldly grace, its size imposing and intimidating, radiating a presence that silenced the air. The enforcers took a step back, unsure, fear evident in their eyes. Ember's pulse quickened. Could it be? The wolf stopped in front of her, its gaze locking with hers. And for the first time in her life, Ember felt a spark, a connection, deep within her soul. The wolf's presence was not just powerful. It was familiar, like something she had always known, something that had been waiting for her. Before anyone could react, the wolf let out a deafening howl, a cry that shook the very earth beneath them. The enforcers recoiled, their eyes wide with fear. Ember's body froze, every muscle trembling in anticipation. She had never felt such energy, such raw power. It was as if the very essence of the forest itself had come to life. "Leave her," the wolf growled, its voice impossibly deep, the words clear even though they were not human. The force in its voice sent a chill through Ember's bones, a shiver that went deeper than her skin. Garrett, the leader of the enforcers, growled back, but his voice trembled with hesitation. "Who are you, beast? You have no place here." The wolf's eyes glowed brighter, its form growing larger, more imposing. The air around them thickened with tension, as though the world itself was holding its breath. The wolf's lips curled back in a silent snarl, and with one swift motion, it surged forward, its massive form crashing into the group of enforcers. The sound of breaking bones and snapping fangs filled the air as the wolves fell back, retreating in terror. Ember stood frozen, unable to tear her eyes away from the magnificent creature that had just saved her life. She hadn't seen this wolf before, but something deep inside her whispered the truth. This was no ordinary animal. The wolf turned to her, its molten silver eyes piercing through her like a blade. "You're mine," it said, the words clear and cold as ice. The next few hours passed in a blur for Ember. She was no longer running, no longer afraid. The wolf, Kieran Nightfall, as he would later reveal, had taken her to a place far from the Ironbark Pack's territory, a hidden sanctuary nestled in the shadow of a towering mountain. His lair. The place was ancient, its air thick with the weight of forgotten memories and secrets long buried. The stone walls were adorned with intricate carvings, old symbols that hummed with power. Ember had never seen anything like it. Kieran, the shadow wolf, was unlike any creature she had ever known. He exuded an aura of both danger and safety, a paradox she couldn't fully comprehend. He was no ordinary wolf. He was an ancient one, a being of immense power. And now he claimed her as his mate. At first, Ember had wanted to refuse, to push him away. But she could feel it, the bond between them, strong and undeniable. A part of her wanted to run, to flee from the powerful force pulling her toward him. But another part of her, the part that had been abandoned and lost for so long, yearned for the connection she had never known. Kieran stood before her, his molten silver eyes softening as he watched her struggle with her emotions. "You are not wolfless, Ember," he said, his voice low and rich with authority. "You have always had a wolf, but it has been hidden, waiting." Ember blinked, confusion wrinkling her brow. "But how? Why?" Kieran's gaze darkened, his expression unreadable. "You are a part of something much greater than you realize. The bond we share is ancient, and it is time for you to awaken." Before Ember could respond, the world around her seemed to shift, the air growing heavy with magic. Her body trembled as a sudden surge of power flooded her senses. And then, the strangest sensation began. Something within her stirred, something she had thought was long gone. Her body responded to it, her bones aching as though they were being reshaped from the inside. With a gasp, Ember's eyes widened as she felt it, the pull of the wolf. Her wolf. Ember's breath hitched as the power surged through her, overwhelming and all-consuming. Her body arched involuntarily, and her skin burned as though it were being set aflame. Every fiber of her being seemed to awaken at once, a primal force stirring deep inside her, clawing to break free. Kieran's presence remained steady, his eyes never leaving hers. The wolf, her wolf, had finally started to stir, pushing against the boundaries of her human form, seeking its freedom. Ember could feel it, deep within her chest, as her heart pounded to the rhythm of the transformation. "I can't," she gasped, her voice barely above a whisper, the words faltering as her body continued to react. "I don't know how to control it." Kieran stepped closer, his presence like a calming anchor amidst the chaos swirling inside her. "You don't need to control it, Ember. You just need to accept it." She closed her eyes, trying to focus on his words. Accept it. But how could she? All her life, she had been told she was wolfless, cursed to live in the shadows of her pack. She had no wolf, no connection to the wildness that flowed through every other shifter. Until now. Her fingers twitched, claws pushing out of her fingertips, her body beginning to change at an agonizingly slow pace. She could feel her bones stretching, shifting. Her skin burned with the sensation of fur sprouting along her arms, her back and legs. It was as though her very essence was being rewritten, reshaped into something new. Kieran was there, his hand on her shoulder, steadying her. His touch sent a shock of warmth through her, like a lifeline amidst the storm. His words were soft but firm. "You are not weak, Ember. You are the beginning of something that has been lost for centuries." Ember swallowed hard, opening her eyes to meet his gaze. "But, what am I supposed to do? What is happening to me?" The silver glow in Kieran's eyes flickered, and he lowered his voice to a near whisper. "You are becoming what you were always meant to be. The Shadow Alpha's mate. The one who will break the curse." Her heart skipped a beat at the words Shadow Alpha. Kieran was a leader, yes, but not of a pack. At least not one Ember knew. There were stories, ancient and whispered, of a line of alphas who were so powerful. They controlled not just packs, but the very forces of nature itself. If Kieran was truly one of them, then her life had just become much more complicated. The transformation was almost complete. Ember's senses sharpened to an incredible degree. She could hear the tiniest rustle of leaves, feel the cool breeze caressing her skin, smell the rich, earthy scent of the forest around them. Her vision sharpened, colors more vivid than ever before. She was no longer just human. She was a wolf. Kieran stepped back, his gaze filled with approval. "You're beautiful." Ember's heart stuttered. The intensity of the moment, the rawness of her new existence, was overwhelming. But it wasn't just the power surging through her that shook her. It was the bond between her and Kieran. She felt it deep inside, like an invisible thread pulling her closer to him, tying them together in ways she didn't yet understand. "You will need to learn to harness this power," Kieran said, his voice calm but serious. "But first, we need to protect you. Your presence here has not gone unnoticed." Ember frowned. "What do you mean?" "The pack, Marcus Stormwind, they'll come for you. They won't let you go so easily, especially not now that they know what you are." Ember's heart sank. Marcus, the alpha in waiting. He had been the one who had rejected her, who had made her feel worthless for so long. He and his enforcers would never leave her alone. The thought of facing them again, of being hunted again, was terrifying. "I can't go back there," she whispered, the weight of the words heavy in her chest. Kieran's expression darkened. "You won't. Not as you are now." Over the next few days, Ember stayed in the hidden sanctuary with Kieran, secluded from the rest of the world. The place was ancient, like something out of a forgotten legend. The walls were lined with stone carvings of wolves in various stages of transformation, ancient symbols she didn't yet understand. The air was thick with magic, an aura of power that made her feel both safe and unsettled at the same time. Kieran kept his distance, for the most part, allowing her to adjust to her new reality. But when he spoke, his words were always deliberate, filled with meaning. He was teaching her, slowly but surely, about her heritage, about her true nature. She was no longer just Ember Blackthorne, the cursed wolfless Omega. She was something much greater, something that had been hidden away for generations. "The line of shadow alphas is ancient," Kieran explained one evening as they sat in the clearing outside the sanctuary. "Our bloodline is tied to the very moon itself. We are keepers of the old magic, guardians of the pack's balance. And you, Ember, are part of that legacy." "But how?" Ember asked, her voice thick with confusion. "How could I be a part of this bloodline? I've never felt any of it. I've never been anything more than weak." Kieran's gaze softened, and he reached out, brushing his fingers against hers. "That's because your wolf has been locked away. The curse that surrounds your bloodline, your family, was placed long ago. The bond was broken, and the wolf was hidden, suppressed. But now you are the key. You are the one who will undo it." Ember shook her head, her thoughts a whirlwind of emotions. "How do I undo it? How do I even know if I can do this?" Kieran's eyes gleamed with something ancient, something deep. "You already have everything you need inside you. The wolf is part of you, Ember. And now that you've awakened, nothing can stop you." But despite his confidence, Ember wasn't so sure. She was still learning to control her new form, still coming to terms with the overwhelming power that coursed through her veins. And even more troubling was the darkness that still lingered in the back of her mind. The memories of her rejection by Marcus, the pack's cruelty. It all felt like a weight she couldn't escape. Kieran, sensing her turmoil, stood and walked toward the center of the clearing. "Come with me," he said, his voice commanding yet gentle. "It's time to see what you're truly capable of." Ember hesitated for a moment before following him. She had no idea what Kieran had in mind, but something inside her urged her to trust him. To trust this bond that had been forged between them so quickly, so powerfully. When she stood before him, Kieran turned and gestured to the vast expanse of the forest surrounding them. "I want you to run. Shift. Let your wolf take over, and let her lead you." Ember felt a flicker of doubt, but it was quickly replaced by a surge of excitement. She had never felt such a raw, untamed energy within her before. Without another word, she closed her eyes, focused, and let the wolf inside her rise. The change was instantaneous. Her body stretched and shifted, her bones and muscles reforming with an excruciating, yet exhilarating force. The ground beneath her feet shifted as she dropped to all fours, her paws hitting the earth with a thundering power. She opened her eyes, her wolf's eyes, and felt the world around her sharpen. The forest came alive. Every sound, every scent, every movement was clear to her now. The freedom was intoxicating. Kieran's voice broke through the haze of her new form. "Good. Now run." And she did. Ember's paws thundered against the earth as she ran, the wind whipping through her fur, the moonlight casting a silvery glow across the forest. Every step felt like a release, the overwhelming pressure of her transformation fading into exhilaration. She was no longer the confused girl who had never known the wildness inside her. Now, she was the wolf, free and unburdened by doubt. The world around her was alive with possibility. Her senses were sharper than ever before. She could hear the distant rustle of animals in the brush, the flow of a nearby stream, the flutter of leaves in the trees above. She could smell the richness of the earth beneath her, the sweet scent of the forest flowers, and even the faint trace of Kieran's presence lingering in the air. But what truly amazed her was the pull within her, the primal instinct urging her forward. It was a connection to something much bigger than herself, something that was calling her deeper into the forest, deeper into the heart of the wild. She ran harder, faster, feeling the power surging within her, the wildness that was now a part of her soul. It wasn't just about the physical thrill. It was about embracing who she was, who she had always been but hadn't understood. The wolf had always been within her, waiting for the moment to break free. The forest stretched on for miles, and as she ran, Ember's mind began to clear. The doubts, the fears, the haunting memories of her pack, of Marcus. They all seemed so distant now, insignificant compared to the force of her new self. She let herself become one with the forest, the earth beneath her paws, the night sky above. It was freedom. She was no longer a prisoner of her past, no longer the girl who had been cast aside. She was alive, in every sense of the word. And then, as she bounded over a fallen log, she heard it, the low, rumbling growl from behind her. She skidded to a stop, her ears pricking as her wolf instincts kicked in. There was danger nearby. Her hackles rose, and her eyes scanned the shadows. Out of the darkness, a pair of glowing amber eyes appeared. The figure moved silently, fluidly, almost as though it were part of the night itself. It was Kieran. He stepped forward, his wolf's form just as powerful as hers, but more controlled, more deliberate. His fur gleamed silver under the moonlight, his muscles rippling with every movement. "You're fast," he said, his voice deep and almost amused, as if he were testing her. Ember narrowed her eyes. "You scared me," she replied, her voice tinged with both annoyance and exhilaration. She had thought she was alone, that the forest was hers to claim, and now here he was, disrupting her newfound freedom. Kieran smiled, the expression both feral and teasing. "The forest is never truly yours to claim, Ember. It belongs to the pack, to the land. And now you're part of it. But you're also part of something much bigger." Ember's ears flicked, a mix of curiosity and uncertainty flooding her. "What do you mean by that?" He tilted his head, his amber eyes glowing with something ancient, something she couldn't fully grasp. "You are not just a wolf, Ember. You are the key to the prophecy. The Shadow Alpha's mate, the one who can break the curse. But to do that, you must understand the balance. You must understand the shadow." The mention of the prophecy struck a chord deep within her. All this time, she had believed her existence was a curse, that she was nothing more than an outcast, a mistake. But now, Kieran was telling her that she was part of something far greater, something tied to the very heart of the werewolf world. "What is the shadow?" she asked, her voice quiet, almost fearful of the answer. Kieran's expression darkened, his gaze turning distant as he looked out into the night. "The shadow is the force that binds us all. It is the balance between the light and the dark, the harmony between the wolf and the human. But it's also a curse, a power that has been locked away for generations. And it's been waiting for you, Ember." Ember's heart raced at the weight of his words. She was beginning to understand that her existence, her very being, was tied to something far greater than she could have imagined. "Am I supposed to embrace the shadow?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You must," Kieran said, his voice low and filled with a quiet urgency. "But to do that, you must learn to control it. The shadow is powerful, but it is also dangerous. And if it's not controlled, it can consume you. We'll train together, Ember. I'll help you unlock the secrets within you." Ember looked at him, feeling a surge of determination. This wasn't just about her transformation. This was about her destiny. She nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes." Kieran's eyes softened, and for a moment, the feral intensity that always seemed to be a part of him faded, replaced with something else, something protective. "I know you will." Over the next few weeks, Ember and Kieran continued their training, their bond growing deeper with each passing day. She learned to control her shifts, to tap into the primal power of her wolf without losing herself to it. She became faster, stronger, more attuned to the world around her. But it wasn't just physical training. Kieran taught her about the history of the Shadow Alphas, about the ancient bloodlines that ran through her veins. She learned that the curse wasn't just a simple matter of being wolfless. It was a complex web of magic, ancient rituals, and broken promises. The Shadow Alpha bloodline had once ruled over the werewolf world, but centuries ago, a betrayal had caused a rift. The Shadow Alpha line had been cursed, their power stripped away, and their wolves locked inside them, waiting for the right person to unlock their potential. That person, it seemed, was Ember. But with that power came responsibility. Kieran made it clear that she wasn't just becoming a powerful wolf. She was becoming the protector of the balance between light and dark, between the wolf and the human. As she trained, she also began to confront her past. Memories of Marcus and the pack flooded her mind. The rejection, the humiliation, the cruelty that had followed her throughout her life. It was hard to reconcile the broken girl she had been with the powerful wolf she was becoming. But Kieran was always there, guiding her, pushing her to confront the darkness within herself. "The shadow isn't just an external force, Ember," he told her one evening, his voice low. "It's a part of you. You must learn to embrace both the light and the dark within you." She looked at him, feeling a strange sense of connection to the man who had claimed her as his mate, who had shown her a side of herself she had never known existed. "I'm afraid of what I could become," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. Kieran's eyes softened. "I know, but I'll be here to help you. Always." Ember woke before dawn, the forest still cloaked in darkness, but her senses were alive with anticipation. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of training, lessons, and revelations that had pushed her to the edge of everything she thought she knew about herself. Kieran had been patient with her, guiding her through the intricacies of her wolf form and the ancient legacy she now carried. Yet every lesson, every transformation, had only led to more questions. Her bond with Kieran deepened with each passing day, and though the attraction between them was undeniable, the weight of her destiny hung heavy in the air. She had begun to feel the call of something ancient, something deep within the earth itself. It wasn't just the moon that beckoned her anymore. It was something older, something more primal. Today was different. Today, Kieran had spoken of a ritual, one that would connect her directly to the shadow and reveal the true extent of her power. It was a dangerous rite, one that only those of her bloodline could perform. But it was also the key to unlocking her place in the prophecy. Kieran appeared beside her in the dim light, his presence a steady force at her back. He had been quiet, thoughtful lately, and Ember could sense that he too was feeling the weight of the coming days. "You're ready," Kieran said softly, his amber eyes steady as they met hers. "But the ritual is not without its risks. You may see things, visions, memories, emotions that are not your own. They will test your resolve. It is a trial." Ember nodded, the uncertainty of her power still lurking beneath her confidence. "I trust you." Kieran reached out, his fingers brushing against her cheek in a rare, tender gesture. "Then let's begin." The ritual would take place deep within the heart of the forest, a sacred ground where the old magic still thrived, untouched by time. They moved swiftly through the woods, the earth soft beneath their feet, the trees whispering in the wind. As they walked, Kieran explained more about the shadow. "It is not just a curse," he said, his voice low as they moved deeper into the forest. "It is a part of who we are." The Shadow Alphas were once revered as the protectors of the balance. They kept the wolves in check, maintaining harmony between the pack and the human world. But the betrayal that shattered the line also unbalanced the forces of nature. The curse was the world's way of punishing that betrayal. Ember felt a chill at the thought. Her bloodline, her very existence, was tied to this history. And now, she was the one who could change everything. As they reached a clearing, the trees seemed to grow taller, their trunks twisting in unnatural shapes. There, in the center of the clearing, stood a massive stone altar, ancient and weathered by centuries of time. The air around it buzzed with power, the remnants of ancient magic lingering in every stone, every crack in the earth. "This is where it will happen," Kieran said, his voice reverent. Ember stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. The ritual would begin with a blood offering, a symbol of her willingness to embrace the shadow. Kieran had explained that it was a test, a way of demonstrating that she understood the responsibility she now carried. Without a word, Kieran drew a sharp knife from the leather belt at his waist and handed it to her. The cold metal gleamed in the moonlight. "Are you sure you're ready?" he asked, his eyes searching hers. Ember hesitated for only a moment before taking the knife. Her hand shook slightly as she held it, but her resolve hardened. She had come too far to turn back now. With a quick, practiced motion, she drew the blade across her palm. Blood welled up, warm and rich, pooling in her hand. She held her palm over the altar, letting the blood fall, drop by drop, onto the stone surface. As the blood touched the stone, the air around them seemed to vibrate with energy. The ground beneath Ember's feet shifted, the earth seeming to breathe with her. She closed her eyes, focusing on the rhythm of her heartbeat, the pulse of the earth beneath her. The world around her began to fade, the sounds of the forest dimming as an overwhelming presence filled the space. And then she saw it. Visions flooded her mind. Images from another time, another life. She saw herself, but not as she was now. She saw a woman with eyes as dark as the night, standing in a circle of wolves. They were shadow alphas, powerful and unyielding, their presence commanding the forest itself. She saw betrayal, blood, tears, and the shattering of a sacred bond. She saw Kieran, not as the man she knew, but as a shadowed figure, his power untamed, his soul torn between light and darkness. The visions swirled faster, images of war, of a broken pack, of the shadow consuming everything in its path. A cry tore from Ember's throat as the flood of emotions overwhelmed her. She staggered, feeling the weight of the shadow pressing down on her, threatening to consume her. Ember! Kieran's voice cut through the haze, grounding her. She opened her eyes, her body trembling with the force of the visions, and saw him standing before her, his hands glowing with an ethereal light. He reached out and gripped her arms, pulling her toward him. You must stay focused. You are the key. You are the one who can break the curse. The shadow pulsed within her, thrumming with power, but Ember felt the connection to it now. Not as a weight, but as a fire within her. It was part of her, and it was hers to control. The visions slowed, the frantic images fading as she centered herself. Kieran's presence was steadying, his aura a calm beacon in the storm of emotions that raged inside her. I see it, Ember whispered, her voice hoarse. I see what I need to do. Kieran's gaze softened, a flicker of pride in his eyes. Yes, you are ready. The ritual had shown Ember the truth. The curse was not something to fear. It was a force she could master, a power she could wield. But with that understanding came a new responsibility. The balance between light and dark was fragile, and it was her duty to restore it. As they left the sacred clearing, Ember felt different, stronger, more aware of the power that flowed through her veins. Kieran walked beside her, the weight of the ancient pact that bound them both pressing down on him. But Ember could feel it now. The bond between them was more than just destiny. It was love. And though the path ahead would be filled with challenges, dangers, and sacrifices, Ember knew she was no longer the girl who had been rejected by her pack. She was a force of nature, a shadow alpha in her own right. And with Kieran by her side, she would fight to protect the balance, and to uncover the secrets of the shadow that had haunted her family for centuries. Together, they would face whatever came next. Ember's footsteps echoed in the darkness as she and Kieran made their way back to the heart of the pack's territory. The ritual had taken more out of her than she had anticipated, leaving her drained but also brimming with new, unfamiliar strength. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, the bond that had been growing between them now more undeniable than ever. Kieran had said she was ready, but ready for what? The visions had shown her many things, yet the answers were still elusive. Ember knew the power within her was real, but there was something deeper, something hidden beneath the surface, that called to her. And Kieran, he was tied to it, too, more than he had let on. Her mind swirled with questions as they walked in silence, but the stillness was interrupted by the sudden sound of a howl in the distance. The mournful cry of a wolf echoed through the trees, followed by another. The pack was calling. Kieran's expression darkened, his jaw tightening. We need to hurry. Ember's heart raced. Something was wrong. They pushed forward, faster now, the urgency in Kieran's every movement evident. As they approached the clearing where the pack's leaders gathered, Ember could feel the tension in the air. The scent of wolves was thick, but there was something else, something foreign, lingering, just beyond her reach. The pack was on edge, alert to something that hadn't been there before. When they arrived, the pack's members were gathered in a circle around a figure standing at the center. The air crackled with energy as they shifted to face Ember and Kieran. The moment the pack saw Ember, their gazes softened, some with awe, others with skepticism. Her presence had changed since the ritual, and even those who had once rejected her now recognized the power she carried. The figure in the center was a woman, older than Ember by at least a decade, but with a strength that made her seem ageless. Her eyes were a deep silver, gleaming with a knowledge that came from years of experience. She was dressed in the traditional garb of the Alpha bloodline, adorned with the sigils of her ancestors. "Ember," the woman spoke, her voice commanding yet gentle. "You are the one the prophecy spoke of." Ember's breath caught in her throat. The prophecy. Kieran stepped forward, his protective nature immediately taking over as he positioned himself between Ember and the woman. "Maya," he said, his voice tight with caution, "what is this about?" Maya's gaze flickered to Kieran before returning to Ember. "I've been waiting for you. The ancient power calls to you, as it once did to your ancestors. But the shadow is not a gift, it is a curse, and you must understand its full weight." Ember felt a shiver run down her spine. This was the moment she had been dreading. The truth about the shadow, the power that had defined her family and had now awakened within her. "I've already seen the shadow," Ember said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling in her chest. "I understand what it can do." Maya nodded, her silver eyes gleaming with an understanding that sent a chill through Ember's bones. "What you saw was only a fraction of what the shadow is capable of. There is a dark history tied to your bloodline, one that was lost to time. The shadow can empower you, but it can also destroy everything you love. You must control it, or it will consume you." Kieran took a step closer to Ember, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "We can help her. We'll face it together." Maya's gaze softened, but only for a moment. "The shadow is not something you can control alone, Kieran. No one can. The only way to end the curse is to break the bond that ties it to Ember's bloodline. The ancient bond that was forged by the first Shadow Alpha." Ember's heart raced. "Break the bond? How?" Maya's eyes flickered toward the sky, as though seeking guidance from the heavens themselves. "There is an ancient artifact, a relic of the first Alpha, hidden deep within the mountains to the north. It is said that only the true heir of the Shadow Alphas can wield it, but it comes with a price." Kieran's expression darkened. "And what price is that?" Maya's lips parted, but before she could answer, a low growl broke the tension. A new presence had entered the clearing, one that made the hair on the back of Ember's neck stand up. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing. His features were obscured by the darkness, but Ember could feel his power radiating like an unholy force. The man's eyes gleamed a feral yellow, and his lips curled into a dangerous smile. "Don't listen to her," the man growled, his voice rough and predatory. "The shadow is ours to control, not to break. You are mine, Ember. You always have been." The moment Ember saw him, she knew. This was the one who had been haunting her dreams, the one whose shadow she had seen in her visions. The Alpha from the past, the one who had broken everything. The pack stiffened, recognizing the threat. Maya's expression darkened as she stepped forward. "You," the man interrupted her with a low, mocking chuckle. "You think you can stop me, Maya? You were never meant to control the shadow. No one is." Ember felt the power within her stir, the shadow urging her to embrace the darkness, to give in to the call of the man who now stood before them. His aura was suffocating, his very presence like a storm brewing in the distance. Yet at the same time, there was a strange pull, a magnetic force that whispered her name. "Ember," the man purred, his eyes locking with hers. "Join me, and together we'll rule the pack. You don't need Kieran. You don't need anyone. Just the shadow and me." Kieran's hand tightened on her shoulder, a silent plea for her to resist, but Ember could feel herself wavering, caught between the light of Kieran's love and the dark allure of the shadow. Her pulse quickened as the shadow inside her surged, pushing at the edges of her mind. She was torn between the man who had claimed her heart and the power that promised to unlock everything she had ever wanted. But as she looked at Kieran, the steady force of his presence gave her the strength she needed. She was not alone. She would never be alone. "I will never be yours," Ember said, her voice firm, the shadow inside her now a part of her, but no longer in control. She turned to Kieran, her heart resolute. "We will face this together." The Alpha's eyes flashed with fury, but before he could respond, Maya stepped forward, her silver eyes blazing. "This ends now, Talon." A fierce battle was about to unfold, one that would determine not just the fate of Ember, but of every wolf who called the pack home. Tension crackled in the air, as if the very ground beneath their feet was holding its breath. Ember's pulse thudded in her ears, her gaze locked on Talon, the man who had once been a part of her bloodline, but who now sought to claim her as his own. The dark allure of the shadow pressed against her mind, urging her to succumb to its power, but she clenched her fists, holding firm. Kieran's grip on her shoulder tightened, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of emotions swirling within her. The darkness within her, though powerful, was not something she would let control her. Not now, not ever. Talon's eyes gleamed with malice, his lips curling into a wicked smile. You think you can fight me, Ember? You have no idea what you're dealing with. The shadow is a part of you, and I am its master. His voice was hypnotic, smooth, like the cold touch of ice against her skin. Ember's mind screamed to reject him, to fight the temptation of the shadow that whispered promises of power. But she couldn't help but feel the pull, the darkness calling her name in a way that felt both comforting and terrifying. We won't let you take her. Kieran's voice was low and firm, his protective instincts rising to the forefront. He stood between Ember and Talon, a wall of strength and determination. Maya stepped forward, her eyes narrowed, her silver gaze unwavering. Talon, you are no longer part of this pack. You are a danger to everything we've built, to everything Ember represents. Talon's laugh was cold, devoid of warmth. You think you can stop me, Maya? I've been alive longer than you can imagine. Your words mean nothing to me. He took a step closer to Ember, his eyes locked onto hers. Come with me, and I will show you a power unlike anything you've ever known. Together, we can rule this pack and all the others. The shadow inside her responded, dark tendrils of power curling through her veins. Ember could feel its intoxicating grip, the promise of control and strength. She fought it with every ounce of willpower she had, her mind focused on the one thing that could save her, the love and support Kieran offered. No, Ember said, her voice trembling but resolute. I won't be your pawn. I won't let the shadow destroy me. Talon's expression twisted with rage, his eyes glowing like molten gold. You'll regret that decision, Ember. The shadow is mine to command, and I will not be denied. The air seemed to thicken as the energy around them surged. Talon's power was undeniable, but Ember could feel her own strength growing, fueled by the bond with Kieran, the love that tied them together, and the pack that had accepted her. The shadow inside her was not her enemy, but something she could learn to wield, something she could control. The ground beneath them trembled as Talon raised his hands, dark energy radiating from him in waves. Ember's instincts flared, and she stepped forward, her body alight with the power of the shadow, but also grounded in her humanity and love for Kieran. She had to do this. She had to stop him. Ember, Kieran called, his voice filled with warning. You have to be careful. The shadow is dangerous. But Ember wasn't listening. She could feel the shadow's energy coursing through her veins, her senses heightened, her body stronger than ever before. The bond between her and Kieran was unbreakable, and with it, she knew she could face this dark force. Talon's laughter echoed around them, cruel and mocking. You think you can control it? You are nothing without me. But Ember's eyes narrowed, the shadow swirling around her like a protective cocoon. I am everything with it, Talon. I am the heir of the Shadow Alphas, and I will no longer be a tool for your twisted plans. With a sudden movement, Talon lunged toward her, but Ember was faster. She raised her hands, and the shadow responded, swirling around her in tendrils of dark power. She could feel its energy, its darkness, but she could also feel the light within her, the love and connection to Kieran and the pack. The two forces collided, Talon's shadow and Ember's, and the clearing exploded in a burst of energy. Kieran rushed forward, grabbing Ember's arm as the shockwaves sent them both tumbling to the ground. The world seemed to spin around them, the air crackling with the intensity of the battle. When the dust cleared, Talon was standing, his form shifting with the power of the shadow, his eyes wild and filled with fury. Ember, too, was on her feet, her body glowing with the same dark energy, but it was controlled, focused. The battle was not over. But Ember was not the same person she had been when she first arrived at the pack. She had learned to harness the shadow, to wield its power without being consumed by it. You cannot win, Talon hissed, his voice dripping with venom. You are nothing without the shadow. Without me. Ember's gaze was steady, her heart calm despite the chaos around them. I am everything with it, and I am not alone. Kieran's presence behind her was a silent promise, a vow of support. Maya and the rest of the pack were gathered around them, ready to fight. The time had come to end this. With a fierce cry, Ember released the full force of the shadow, sending a wave of energy crashing toward Talon. The air crackled with the intensity of the magic, the ground beneath their feet trembling as the forces of light and dark collided. Talon fought back, his form flickering between human and wolf, the shadow enveloping him like a cloak of darkness. But Ember was stronger now. Her connection to the pack, to Kieran, to the land, had given her the strength to control the shadow, not let it control her. With a final surge of power, Ember's hands shot forward, and the shadow broke free from Talon's grasp, wrapping around him in tendrils of darkness. He howled in rage, but his form began to fade, the shadow consuming him entirely. In the silence that followed, the clearing was still. Talon was gone, his darkness vanquished by the very power he had sought to control. Ember stood, her chest heaving as the energy inside her slowly settled. The shadow no longer felt like a burden. It was a part of her, a gift that she could wield, a tool to protect those she loved. Kieran stepped forward, his eyes soft with relief as he pulled her into his arms. "You did it," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. "You were incredible." Ember's heart swelled with love for him, for the pack, and for the life she had fought so hard to create. She was not the girl they had called wolfless. She was a force in her own right, and the shadow that once haunted her was now a part of her strength. Maya approached, her silver eyes glowing with pride. "You are the true heir of the Shadow Alphas, Ember. The curse is broken." Ember smiled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "It's not a curse anymore," she said, turning her gaze toward Kieran. "It's my gift." The sun began to rise over the mountains, casting long, golden rays across the clearing. The battle was over, but the weight of what had just transpired still hung in the air. Ember stood in the center of the pack, her hands trembling slightly as she felt the remnants of the dark energy ebbing away. Talon was gone, but the shadow still lingered, not as a threat but as a part of her. It was no longer a force of destruction. It was a force of balance, of power that she could control. Kieran remained by her side, his hand resting gently on her lower back, his presence a constant reminder that they were in this together. They were a unit, bound not just by love, but by the trials they had faced and overcome. Maya, the other wolves, and the entire pack gathered around them, all watching Ember with a mixture of awe and respect. "Ember," Maya said, her voice soft yet steady, "you've done more than break a curse. You've proven that the shadow is not something to fear. You've embraced it, mastered it." Ember nodded, her eyes sweeping over the pack. "I couldn't have done it without all of you." Her voice was steady now, no longer the uncertain girl who had arrived in the pack. She had found herself, not through the power of the shadow, but through the love and unity of the pack. The shadow was merely a tool. What mattered was how she chose to use it. "We're family now," Kieran added, his voice thick with emotion as he squeezed her shoulder gently. "That's what matters. You're not wolfless. You're ours." A surge of warmth filled Ember's chest, and she turned to Kieran, her eyes filled with gratitude. She had once feared she would never find her place, but here, with Kieran, Maya, and the others, she had found more than just a home. She had found herself. Maya stepped forward, her silver eyes flashing. "The Shadow Alphas are no longer a legend, Ember. You've made the old prophecy true. The pack is stronger than it's ever been." Ember's heart skipped a beat. The prophecy. She had always thought of it as something distant, a story, a curse. But now, she realized that she had fulfilled it. She was the heir of the Shadow Alphas, and she would carry that legacy forward. Not with fear, but with purpose. "You are our alpha now," Maya said, bowing her head in respect. "The pack recognizes you." Ember's breath caught in her throat. The weight of those words, the responsibility they carried, was immense. But as she looked at Kieran, she felt a surge of determination. She wasn't alone in this. She never would be. "I'll do everything I can to lead you," Ember said, her voice filled with conviction. "But I need you all as much as you need me." The pack gathered around her, a show of unity that warmed her heart. She wasn't just their alpha by blood. She was their alpha by choice, by the bond they had forged together. Kieran stepped forward, his hand slipping into hers. "We'll face whatever comes next together." The peace they had fought so hard to protect would not last forever. There would be challenges ahead, more dangers to face, more enemies to defeat. But Ember knew now that she was ready. She had the power of the shadow, the strength of her pack, and the love of the man standing beside her. Together, they would build a future. And it would be a future of their own making. It had been a week since the battle with Talon. The pack had settled back into a semblance of normalcy, but Ember could feel that there was still unease in the air. The shadow inside her, though under her control, sometimes whispered things, old memories, visions of the past. There were pieces of her history that she didn't fully understand, fragments that had been lost when the darkness took hold of her. One evening, after the last of the pack had gone to bed, Ember sat alone on the edge of the pack's territory, staring into the vast wilderness that stretched out before her. Kieran had insisted she rest, but the questions still gnawed at her. The shadow that had been her curse for so long was also a part of her ancestry, a part of her legacy. She had to know more. A rustle behind her broke her from her thoughts. She didn't need to turn to know it was Kieran. His presence was always a comfort. "You're still thinking about it, aren't you?" Kieran asked softly, sitting down beside her. Ember sighed, looking out at the moonlit forest. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of this. The shadow, the legacy. I've barely scratched the surface. There are pieces of my past that don't make sense." Kieran's hand found hers, his thumb tracing soft circles over her skin. "You don't have to do it alone." Ember squeezed his hand, grateful for his unwavering support. "I know, but I need to understand. The shadow is a part of me, but it feels like there's something more, something from the past that I need to learn." "Then we'll find it together," Kieran said, his voice filled with determination. "Whatever the past holds, we'll uncover it. You don't have to carry it alone." Ember looked at him, her heart swelling with love. How had she gotten so lucky? She had once feared being alone, feared being without purpose. But now, with Kieran by her side, she knew she could face anything, even the shadows of her past. The wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of the forest and the faintest whisper of something ancient. Ember stood, pulling Kieran to his feet. "There's something out there," she said, her voice firm. "I can feel it." Kieran's gaze sharpened. "You think it's related to your past?" "I'm not sure," she admitted. "But I know I need to go after it." Kieran nodded. "Then we go together." They set off into the night, guided only by the pull of the unknown. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain. They would face it together, as they always had. The journey through the dense woods was quiet, save for the soft rustling of leaves and the distant howl of a lone wolf in the distance. Ember felt the pull of something ancient, the shadow within her stirring, as though it recognized something out there in the wilderness. She had learned to trust her instincts. Those instincts had kept her alive for so long, had guided her through the darkest of times. Tonight, they were leading her toward something powerful. Kieran walked beside her, his presence a steady comfort. Even though the shadows within Ember had become a part of her, she wasn't sure she was fully ready to face the depths of her own power. There was a whisper in her mind, a call from the past that was both familiar and unsettling. "Do you feel it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper as they moved through the thickening underbrush. Kieran nodded, his silver eyes scanning the darkness around them. "It's like a tug, pulling us deeper into the forest." "What do you think it is?" "I'm not sure," Ember replied, her gaze fixed ahead, "but it feels like something waiting to be uncovered." They continued through the woods, the moon casting its pale light over the path ahead. The trees seemed to close in around them, their ancient limbs creaking in the wind. Ember felt a strange sensation rising within her, an awareness she couldn't explain. It was as if the forest itself was watching, waiting for something. And then they reached it. In the clearing ahead, surrounded by towering trees, stood a massive stone structure. The stone was covered in moss, the surface worn and weathered by time, but there was something undeniable about the energy that radiated from it. It was a place of power, ancient power. Ember's heart raced as she stepped forward, the air around her thick with the presence of something both magnificent and terrifying. Kieran stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers. "What is this place?" Ember stood motionless, her breath coming in short gasps. "I don't know, but I think it's where it all started, where my power was born." She stepped forward again, feeling the pull of the stone as it seemed to beckon her closer. As her fingers brushed against the cold surface, a surge of energy rushed through her, as if the stone had come alive beneath her touch. The shadow within her responded, waking from its deep slumber, and Ember's body shuddered in response. A voice echoed in her mind, a voice that was deep and ancient, like the earth itself. "You have returned, Bridgewalker. The time has come." The words reverberated in her skull, and Ember's knees buckled as the vision hit her. She saw flashes of her ancestors, powerful beings who walked beneath the moon's light with the shadows of the earth at their command. They were the original wolves, the first shifters, and the power they had wielded was vast, far beyond anything Ember had imagined. The vision shifted, showing her a great battle. A war fought not with claws and teeth, but with the very forces of nature itself. It was a battle to protect the world from those who sought to control it. Ember felt the weight of it, the fear, the sacrifice. "It is your legacy," the voice continued, more insistent now, "and it is your choice to awaken it." Ember's heart pounded as she tried to steady herself. The truth was overwhelming. She was the heir to a power that spanned generations, a legacy that had been dormant, waiting for the right moment to rise again. She was the bridgewalker, the one who would connect the past with the future, the one who would carry the weight of the ancient magic. But with that power came responsibility. She couldn't ignore the consequences of wielding it. Kieran stood beside her, his presence a calm anchor in the midst of the storm inside her. "Ember," he said softly, "you don't have to do this alone. Whatever this is, we face it together." Ember turned to him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I don't know if I'm ready for this, Kieran. This power, it's not just mine. It's the pack's, the wolves." Kieran cupped her face in his hands, his gaze unwavering. "You are the pack's, and the pack is with you. You've always been more than what you thought. You're not wolfless. You never were." Ember's breath caught in her throat as the truth of his words washed over her. She had spent so long thinking of herself as an outsider, as someone who didn't belong. But now, standing here with Kieran, with the pack by her side, she realized that the very thing she had feared, her shadow, was the key to her true strength. The energy around her intensified as she took a deep breath, feeling the power flow through her veins, as if the very earth itself was awakening in her. Her fingers sparked with energy, her wolf's essence rising within her. She wasn't just an Omega anymore. She was the Shadow Alpha, the one who would lead them all into the future. "Yes," Ember said, her voice steady with newfound resolve. "I accept my legacy." With that, the ground beneath her feet trembled, and the stone beneath her hand glowed with an ethereal light. The shadows within her swirled and shifted, wrapping around her like a protective cloak, a tangible force that no longer held her in fear. It was now a part of her strength. The voice in her mind faded, leaving her with only the steady beat of her heart. She looked up at Kieran, and he smiled, proud, loving, and unafraid. "You've done it, Ember," he whispered. "You've embraced it." The ancient magic surged one last time, then settled, leaving Ember standing in its wake, stronger than she had ever been. The days that followed were filled with preparation. The pack rallied around Ember, their strength and unity growing with every passing hour. Ember had proven herself, not just to the pack, but to herself. She was the bridgewalker, the one who would lead them all forward, out of the shadows and into a new era for the wolves. But the peace would not last. The Council of Alphas had not forgotten her challenge. They would come for her, come for all of them. Kieran stood beside Ember as they looked out over the pack's territory from the high ridge. The air was still, but there was a sense of tension in the atmosphere. The battle they had all been dreading was drawing near. "We need to be ready," Ember said, her voice hardening with determination. "They won't stop until they've crushed everything we've built. They'll see me as a threat to their power. And we will show them just how wrong they are," Kieran said, his voice low but full of confidence. Ember turned to him, meeting his gaze. "We have something they don't. We have the strength of the old ways. We have unity. And we have the power of the moon behind us." Kieran nodded. "We will fight together. For the pack. For the future." The war was coming. But this time, Ember wasn't afraid. She had faced her past, and she had embraced her power. Now she was ready to lead the charge. "Let them come," she said, a fierce fire burning in her amber eyes. "We'll show them what happens when they challenge the shadows." The wind howled through the trees, the full moon casting a ghostly light over the land. The wolves, now united under Ember's leadership, moved in silence, their footsteps barely a whisper on the forest floor. The night felt charged, heavy with anticipation, as though the very earth itself was holding its breath. Ember's senses were heightened, her connection to the Shadow Alpha stronger than ever. The ancient power within her thrummed, sending ripples through her skin, through her very bones. She could feel the presence of the enemy, their energy radiating from the stronghold ahead. It wasn't just the council she was up against. It was everything they represented: control, dominance, fear. "We're close," Kieran whispered beside her, his voice low but steady. Ember nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the darkness. She could see the flickering of torchlight up ahead, and the unmistakable shapes of wolves moving in formation. The council had fortified themselves well, but they didn't know what was coming for them. They didn't understand the power of the pack that had risen from the ashes. With a single, determined motion, Ember raised her hand, signaling the pack to halt. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on the energy around her. The shadow was alive in her, as if it could feel her need, her resolve. She called on it, urging it to awaken fully. A low growl rumbled from her throat, and the shadows around her seemed to stretch and grow, twisting into shapes of pure power. The wolves behind her felt it too. Their eyes glowed faintly, their instincts sharpening. They were no longer just wolves. They were warriors bound by the call of the ancient shadow. "We move now," Ember said, her voice ringing out with authority. "For the future of the wolves." The moment they surged forward, the world seemed to explode into motion. The air was thick with the sounds of battle. The sharp crack of bones shifting into wolf form, the growls of the warriors, the clash of fangs and claws. Ember moved like a shadow, swift and lethal, her body a blur as she tore through the enemy lines. She could sense the leader of the council's forces, a tall, imposing figure, his aura dark and oppressive. He was close, and she knew that if she could take him down, it would be a blow the council wouldn't recover from. Kieran fought by her side, his movements fluid and precise. Their connection was effortless, as if their hearts beat as one. Every time one of the council's wolves attempted to strike, Kieran was there, deflecting the blow and protecting Ember. They were unstoppable together. The battle raged on, but Ember's focus never wavered. She had a single target in mind, the council's leader. His scent was unmistakable, a pungent mixture of power and cruelty that made Ember's blood boil. She found him at the heart of the stronghold, standing tall with an air of cold detachment as his wolves fought around him. His eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment there was a flicker of recognition. "You," he sneered, his voice laced with disdain. "I should have known. You're the one they've been calling the Bridgewalker. You think you can defeat us?" "I don't need to defeat you alone," Ember replied, her voice low and filled with unwavering determination. "I have the strength of the wolves with me." With a growl, she lunged at him, her claws extending as she slashed through the air. He was quick, too quick, but Ember was faster, fueled by the shadow that swirled within her. The clash was fierce, a battle of wills as much as strength. The council's leader fought with the power of centuries of control, his every movement calculated. But Ember fought with something far more ancient. The fury of the wolves, the passion of freedom, and the raw power of the Shadow Alpha. She could feel it inside her, the pulse of the shadow growing stronger with each strike. The moonlight above them seemed to intensify, bathing the battlefield in silver. The power of the full moon was in her veins, and with it, she could feel the shadow becoming one with her body. With a primal scream, Ember slammed her claws into the council leader's chest, her power surging through him, filling every inch of his being. His eyes widened in shock as the ancient force within her consumed him. "You are nothing," she hissed, her voice a low growl. "This world belongs to the wolves." With one final, devastating strike, she ended it. The council leader crumpled to the ground, his lifeless body sinking into the dirt. The moment he fell, the energy in the air seemed to shift, the oppressive weight lifting from the battlefield. Ember stood over him, her chest heaving with exertion, but her heart was steady. The council's reign was over. The battle had been won, but the cost was high. The air was thick with the scent of blood, and the ground was littered with the fallen. Ember stood in the center of the clearing, her eyes scanning the field as her warriors tended to the wounded. The victory was theirs, but the war had taken its toll. Kieran appeared beside her, his expression grim. "We've won, but we've lost many." Ember nodded, her heart heavy. The cost of freedom is always high, but it's worth it. She could feel the weight of the shadow lifting, its power now fully integrated with her. The ancient energy that had once been a part of her struggle was now a part of who she was, guiding her in the aftermath of the battle. "We've broken the council's hold over the packs," Kieran said, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "But this is just the beginning. The future of the wolves is in our hands now." Ember turned to face him, her eyes steady and filled with resolve. "And we will protect it. We'll rebuild. Together." The wolves gathered around them, their faces tired but filled with a new sense of purpose. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They were no longer alone. The pack was united, stronger than ever, and nothing, no enemy, no force, could break them. Ember had been called wolfless. But now, with the Shadow Alpha's power coursing through her, she was more than that. She was the bridge to the future, a future where the wolves would finally be free. The moon rose high above the forest, casting its pale light over the land. Ember stood at the edge of the clearing, looking out at the horizon. The battle was over, but the journey was just beginning. Beside her, Kieran stood silent, his hand resting gently on her waist. They didn't need to speak. The bond between them was unspoken but undeniable. The love they shared, forged in the fires of war, was a constant, steady presence. "We've done it," Kieran murmured. "We've freed the wolves." Ember's smile was soft but filled with quiet pride. "This is just the beginning. The true future of the wolves starts now." With the rising sun painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Ember stepped forward, her pack at her back, ready to face whatever came next. For the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. She had a family, a pack, and a future that was hers to shape. The world had changed. The wolves had changed. And Ember, the bridgewalker, was their leader, stronger, wiser, and more powerful than she had ever been. The end.